Hey church, welcome and thank you for worshiping with us. Wherever you're worshiping, in your home or on your TV, laptop or phone, you are a part of this family. And you could watch or listen to past messages by heading to mycornerstone.family. On our sermons page, you can view playlists, search for past messages, and more. You can even listen to our content by subscribing to the Cornerstone America's podcast, which can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. I hope you enjoy the message and thank you for being a part of the Cornerstone family.
All right, so let's get into our series this morning. We're talking about imperfect families. Man, if our families could be just that easy as these old shows seem to make it, everything could be solved in about 30 minutes and then you're done and move on to the next thing, right? It'd be great. But we are continuing in this series, Our Imperfect Family, and we're getting into a story today that is probably one of the most heart-wrenching, dramatic stories in the Bible, definitely in Genesis. As we read part of this text, you'll feel the emotion of it, so try and put yourself into this spot, into this story. We've been going through the book of Genesis, looking at the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, and how they had some pretty messed up families. Sometimes we look at our families, we feel like, yeah, we're pretty messed up. We look at these families like, man, they are really messed up. If there's hope for them, there's hope for us, right? Right? Okay, all right, we'll make sure. Okay, good. All right, we're sure there. All right, let's get into this. And I'm starting at the most dramatic part of the story. Man, just to get, if you know the story, right? We have Isaac who wants to bless Esau, but Rebecca wants Jacob to be blessed, and so they're trying to outwit each other. And so after Isaac had finished blessing him, talking about blessing Jacob, Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence. His brother Esau came in from hunting, right? Jacob went in there, stole the blessing, and Esau comes and he too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" And Esau answered, "I am your son, your firstborn." Isaac trembled violently. And could you feel the emotion? He's now figured out what has happened. And it says, Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came and I blessed him, and indeed, he will be blessed." Verse 34, when Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father, bless me too." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? He has deceived me these 2 times. He took my birthright and now he's taking my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me? Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. And so what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing? Bless me too. Bless me too." Then Esau wept aloud. Man, do you feel the emotion in this? Do you feel the deception? What's just taken place here in this family? Man, bless me too, my father. Do you only have one blessing? Do you hear the cry, the hurt? What's going on? Isaac is shaking, trembling violently. Man, this is a story that's so interesting on so many levels. But first off, it's a story of deception. In Genesis, we've been looking at this, how one pattern of sin is being passed down from one generation to the next. We see this happen many times in our day, whether it's addiction or domestic violence or just destructive patterns that are being passed down from one generation to the next. And we see that in these early families in Genesis. Abraham lied about his wife. His son Isaac lies about his wife. We have Jacob telling lies, and it keeps going down further and further in the line. I think sometimes it's good to think about our own families. If somebody was writing a story about your family, what would they write? What would they write that's being passed down from one generation to the next? What kind of patterns of sin might you see? I had a friend in college who did this. He felt led of the Lord to go back and look at his family generations and look and see what was causing his family to struggle. And he came up with about 3 different things that his family was struggling. It felt like the Lord told him, be careful of these 3 things. What kind of pattern might you find among your generations? And of course, not all of them are bad. Some of them are good too. You might have a generation, each generation is good athletes, or they're really smart and do well in school. Whatever it might be, there's also good attributes too. To look at those and see what your strengths are generation after generation. It's good to evaluate that and think about those things. Let's keep going in our story. Let's go back to the beginning. Genesis 27, verse 1, of what's happening in the story. We read kind of the dramatic climax of it, and then verse 1, this is how it gets set up. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called Esau, his older son, and said to him, my son, here I am, he answered. Isaac said, I'm now old. I'm an old man, and I don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your weapons, your quiver, your bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like and bring it to me to eat so that I might give you my blessing before I die. Now this becomes very interesting because we see a couple things. We wonder, was Isaac trying to hurry this along? Usually when the patriarch, the father of the family, was passing his blessing on, they would gather the whole family together so everybody would know who he's blessing and what that entailed. But he doesn't do this. He wants to do this in secret, so he just gets with his oldest son and he pulls him aside and he has this plan. So we're wondering, is he trying to hurry? We also know that he thinks he's close to death. He's about 137 years old, so maybe he is. He's got a failing eyesight that would come with old age, and so he doesn't know when he's going to die. But we know from looking at other scriptures that he lives to about 180 years old, so he does still have some time left. But maybe rightfully so, thinking of his brother Ishmael, he died when he was 137, so he might be thinking that he's close to death too. But it seems like he's hurrying and he's trying to hide it and keep it a secret. He didn't gather the family around where everybody could hear the blessing that he was going to lay out. It was just done between him and Esau. And it seems like there's not just secrecy, but there's a conspiracy, a collusion. Almost like Isaac knew that God wanted the blessing on Jacob, the younger son. And Isaac didn't like that. He wanted the blessing to be on his favorite son, the older one, Esau. And so there's this like collusion, there's deception, there's this conspiracy. Like even they wanted to outsmart God on this one, and he wanted to bless his favorite son, the oldest one, which would be typical for the day and age in which they lived. And surely he knew about in Genesis 25:23, the Lord said to her, this is talking about Jacob's wife, Rebekah, said the Lord said to her, the 2 nations, or Isaac's wife, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 people from within you will be separated. 1 people will be stronger than the other. The older will serve the younger. Surely this was happening when she was pregnant with these boys in her belly. Surely she had told this to Isaac. Surely Isaac knew. Surely he also knew about the birthright that Esau had sold to his younger brother. And so surely he knew this. It's almost like he's trying to outwit God and get the blessing on his favorite child. Genesis 27:36, when Esau said, isn't he rightly named Jacob? He has deceived me these 2 times. Surely this wasn't the first time this had been brought up in Isaac's presence. Surely he knew about this. And so they were trying to outwit God. They were trying to pull a fast one, and it doesn't work. The other thing we see is not just deception, but we see this is a story of favoritism. Mom had her favorite son. Dad had her favorite son. And they wanted certain things for each of them. Look at this. Even in the text, the way it's written, we see this. Look at verse 5. Now Rebekah was listening, and the way this is written in the Hebrew, listening is like not something she just happened to do, but she pretty much had as a pattern, a way of doing life. She's listening in, see what Isaac was doing. Was listening as Isaac spoke, notice, to his son Esau. Not their son, to his son Esau. When Esau left the open country to hunt game and bring it back. Rebekah said to her son, Jacob, do you see the favorites being played here? They were playing favorites. Rebekah said to her son, Jacob, look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau. And then she comes up, she has this plan. We see verse 8, now my son, again, my son, listen carefully to do what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats so I can prepare some tasty food for your father just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father and eat so that he may give you his blessing before he dies. So we have Isaac is trying to position Esau, his favorite, for this blessing. And Rebekah is trying to position her favorite son, Jacob, for this blessing. It's a story of deception. It's a story of playing favorites. And we see as it continues to go down through here in verse 11, Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, but my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I'm a man with smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing. His mother said to him, my son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me. Now, what I also find interesting in the story is that as Jacob is being told what to do by his mother, never does he stop and say, Mom, I think this may not be a good idea. This seems kind of like lying, deception, like we should think of a different plan. Nowhere, his only concern is, I don't want to get caught. If we do this, let's do it in a way we don't get caught. Pragmatics, not principles. And so it's interesting that he's going right along with it, and his only concern is, I don't want to get caught. I don't want a curse to come down on me. Now, I really think they were doing what God wanted done, is that the younger to be blessed, not the older. But the way they went about it was wrong. And so the question, I think, comes up when we look at this text and we read this, like, what should Rebekah have done in this circumstance? We know what she does do. She goes through with this plan with Jacob and deceives Isaac and Esau. But what should she have done? Honestly, I think what she should have done, she should have had a heart-to-heart conversation with Isaac. Her husband said, hey, I don't think what you're doing is right. I think God is calling the younger one to have that blessing, not the older one. And then leave it in God's hands. But she didn't do that, did she? She wanted to take control and make it work. This is what I think God wants, and I'm going to make it happen. And how many know that sometimes we have a tendency to do the same thing, don't we? And sometimes we'll even do something that's wrong because we think the end result is right. And we'll bring God into it. We can bring God into it and do it in his name. But really not too far off than what we see happening in our own situations, circumstances, and our families. Rebekah, I think, took the wrong path, but so did Isaac. So they're fighting for who gets this blessing. Genesis 27, verse 14, so he went and he got them and brought them to his mother. So she prepared some tasty food, just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on the younger son, Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with the goat skin. Favoritism. They're playing favorites. Do we ever play favorites? I think it was more common to play favorites back in their day. I think it's less common, but it still happens today. Hopefully it doesn't happen in our families. We ought to be fighting against that, not playing favorites. I think what we need to be careful of, it is true that we have a tendency to maybe bond or connect with one child easier than another based upon personalities, likes and dislikes. But we should never get that confused with unequal love. We love our kids all equally, and we need to be involved in their life, no matter whether they have things that are similar to us or not. And if we don't have similar ground, I really believe we need to get on their ground, get on their territory. I was talking to a dad one time. He said, we just don't have anything in common. He needs to meet me halfway, and I'll come halfway with something we both like. And I said, no. I said, you go all the way and just jump into something he loves and learn to love it too. And just meet him right where he's at. It's not about our kids coming to us. It's about us coming to them. We get down on their level. What are their likes? What do they enjoy? And get involved in it and enjoy it with them. It's kind of like you're home. You want to get involved with your kids. You want to connect with your kids. When they're young, you get down on the ground and you will immediately connect with them. A lot of times when I got home from work, one of the first things I did when our kids were younger, I don't do it anymore, unless I want to play with the dog nowadays. Now I do it for the dog. So yeah, we get down on the ground. But when our kids were younger, I'd come home and I'd just lay down on the ground and there was immediate connection. They would come running over, they'd jump, we'd play, we'd wrestle. There would be a connection. We get down on their level. We don't try and get our kids to make it to our level or to our terms or what we like. We come into their territory and just build relationships right where they're at. You know, the results of having a favorite child, many times for that child that's not the favorite, is disfavored one, is resentment toward the other siblings and aggression or struggling in life and school. Even for the favored child, there's entitlement, a lack of accountability, and a belief that maybe the rules don't apply because they seem to be getting their way all the time. Are we playing favorites? Maybe it's not your playing favorites. Maybe your parents played favorites when you were younger. Maybe you weren't the favored child. You know, there's healing for us if our parents played favorites and we weren't the favored one. You know, there's healing for us. And you know what? Here's the great thing about following Jesus. We are all his favorite. And we're not striving for his attention. We're not striving for his acceptance and approval and his love. He gives it freely just the way we are. And so we are his favorite. If you were ever disfavored or felt like you were the disfavored, because some of it also is perception, but maybe you felt like you're a disfavored child, then I say get alone with God and let him show you how you are his favorite. Something changes in us when we realize that we're his favorite and we're not striving for that, but he loves us just the way we are. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to leave us the same. He's going to change us in the process, but he loves us just the way we are. And as parents, if we struggle, maybe we're playing favorites, man, we need to get honest and just be honest with that. Maybe we need to confess that to a few people, maybe to our spouse or maybe to our child, and get that right and not play favorites. Now, just because you're not playing favorites doesn't mean you treat everybody equally necessarily, because somebody wants to do this sport, somebody wants to do that sport, so there's going to be some differentiation there, but there's no favorites being played. All right, let's keep jumping into our story. Genesis 27, verse 19. Jacob said to his father, and look, he's going in there, he's giving his food, and the lie just continues, and I feel like the lie gets bigger and bigger, and it gets worse and worse. He says, I am Esau, your firstborn. He's probably thinking, man, I didn't realize I was going to have to say this when I signed up for this. He walks in there to his father, he says, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Man, the lie just keeps going. Please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing. Isaac asked his son, how did you find it so quickly, my son? The Lord now he brings God into this whole thing. Do you ever feel like there's a lightning bolt getting ready to strike here? Right there. The Lord your God gave me success, he replied. I can only imagine thinking, gosh, I can't believe I'm saying this stuff. But I've gotten into this thing. I've got to finish it. This is the way lies work. The Lord your God gave me success, he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau. Or I think he's sweating here. Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so he blessed him. Are you really my son Esau? He said, I am, he replied. And he cheated his brother out of the blessing. Man, and this lie, I feel like, just kept growing. It's a story of deception. It's a story of favoritism. It's also a story of blessing, that Isaac is on his deathbed, wanting to bless his family, or at least bless Esau. And a blessing would work in Old Testament times is that the oldest got a double portion of his father's estate. But this wasn't just any ordinary blessing. This just wasn't physical. This was also a covenant blessing. That the Messiah, that Jesus would come one day, was going to come through that line. It wasn't just a blessing on his deathbed, a double portion of all that he had. It was the covenant blessing that the Messiah would come through his lineage. And we see some interesting things about this blessing. I think we need to just stop for a second and just mention a few of them, because these are things that we need to incorporate into our daily life with our family. How do we bless those around us? How do we bless our children? How do we bless our spouse? How do we bless our friends? Let me give you a few ways that are in this text this morning. The first one is affection. Meaningful touch, reaching out and touching somebody is a way that we show a blessing. You think about Jesus laying hands on the leper, the untouchables. He would touch them, he would bless them, he would heal them. What about the children? He gathered them up in his arms, he touched them, and he blessed them. Meaningful, appropriate touch. Do we make contact with those around us? Are we reaching out and touching those closest to us? Do we hug our spouse? Do we put an arm around our family? Do we punch our sons in the shoulder? That's still appropriate. Not too hard, still appropriate. You know what I mean? For every person it's different, right? Do we have contact every day with those that are closest to us? Contact, physical contact is so important. And that's why when people come through this door, we shake their hand, we hug them, appropriate contact to let, because I don't know what somebody's been through. They may have had the hardest week of their life, and maybe nobody has put their arm around them and said, hey, I care about you, we love you. And we want everybody coming through this door to know that we love them. I want everybody in my family to know that we love them. Are we showing our family appropriate contact? Are we touching them in meaningful, positive ways? Do you do that every day? And studies show that fathers are less affectionate than mothers, but that doesn't take us off the hook. We still need to find meaningful ways to connect with our kids. Like I said, whether it's a hug or whether if you got a son, just punch him in the shoulder, that does too. Here's the thing, and sometimes we struggle with this. I'll never forget this story. I was in India back in 1994. I know sometimes some of you weren't even born then, but in 1994, and one of the guys that we were with was doing like this little mini marriage conference to some of the church men and women, couples. You know, back then, and maybe it's still that way, I don't know, I've not been back there since then. Anyways, they had men sitting on one side and women sitting on the other side. And he's doing this marriage conference, you know. And then he says, you guys need to, show affection. And all the ladies are like, yeah. All the guys are like, what are you talking about, And it's like, you guys need to hug. And I want everybody right now to stand up and go hug your spouse. And the ladies got up and they're all excited. Like, they're like, yeah, let's go do this. And all the guys are like, we can't do this. What are you talking about? We can't do this. And it was too much too fast, okay? You got to go slow. And they're like, one of the guys got up and said, I think you're asking them to do too much. It's like, maybe when you get home, hug your spouse. You do that, So had to change it, but they weren't used to that. Maybe you're not used to that too. But we can learn to be affectionate. We can learn how to show affection to those closest to us, and we need to do it. It's healthy. Years ago, and I know I've said this, I've talked about this study before, and I don't have the date, I didn't pull it up, I'm just going to pull it from memory here. They wanted to do a study years ago, hundreds of years ago. They wanted to know what language babies would naturally speak if no language was spoken to them. So what they did was they held these babies only minimally, just to change their diaper, to feed them. They put them back in the crib because they wanted to see with as little stimulation as possible, what language would they speak? Would it be Hebrew? Would it be Greek? What would it be? And they found that an alarming number of the babies were dying. Why? Because they lacked physical touch. Every person needs physical touch. Maybe you go into a nursing home or someplace where people, one of the best things you do is shake their hand, give them a hug. Physical touch, so important. Who around you is maybe starving for meaningful, positive, appropriate physical touch? Think about that. All right, number 2, affirmation. Words that are positive, words that don't tear down, words that build up. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. What kind of words are we speaking to those around us? Are they positive words? I mean, look what Isaac said. He said, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field. And say that to your spouse today. They would love that. Or you smell like a barn. I mean, you smell like, find something. If you want to go to, Song of Solomon, pull out some good stuff from Song of Solomon. He talks about trees being like, legs being like, never mind. Anyways, let's just keep going. Affirmation, positive words that build up and don't tear down. Are we doing that? What words are we speaking to those closest to us? What kind of words do we speak over our spouse? What kind of words do we speak over our children? Do we speak words of life? You can do it. You are smart enough. You can do this. Or do we speak other words to them? Do we tell them, I love you? Do you hear about the guy? They went in for counseling and the wife says, we've been married 40 years and my problem is he never says, I love you. The counselor looks, says, is that true? He said, of course it's not true. I told her I loved her on the marriage day and if anything changes, I'd let her know. Okay. Needs to be done more often than that. I love you. I'm praying for you. I'm here for you. What words? All right, number 3, attention. Do we give them our attention? Are we paying attention? Attention is so important. It's something we say that we're paying. Are we paying that? We're so distracted. I don't know about you, I'm so distracted. We've got phones, we've got computers, we've got TVs, we've got stuff bombarding us. Do we give people our undivided attention? You know what? You want to know how a teenager spells love? T-I-M-E. You know how your kids spell love? Time. Sometimes it's easier to give them something than to give them our time. Do we give those closest to us, those most important to us, do we give them our time? Attention. We all get off track. A missing element of today is we don't spend enough time together. You wonder why couples who've been married for years have troubles? They spend little to no time together. What happened when you were dating? When you were dating, you spent all your time together almost, right? You guys could not be separated. Time. 20 years later, 30 years later, it's like, we don't spend much time together. It takes time. Time builds relationship. Acceptance. Do we accept them for who they are? Do we accept them? Isaac was accepting his son, although he had the wrong son, accepting him, wanting to pass the blessing on from one generation to the next. Are we accepting of our kids? All right, let me go to another scripture here. Hebrews chapter 11. Verse 29, this is so funny because I feel like for years as a kid, you read the story, you know the story of Jacob and Esau, of Isaac, Rebekah, and then at some point you come across Hebrews chapter 11, verse 20, and you read this and you don't think about connecting the dots too much, but it says, by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. By faith? I thought it was by deception and lies. And you think, what is he talking about? This doesn't seem right. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau. It's surprising with all the deception and manipulation, disobedience that was going on. But it's not, God isn't praising his faith for the method that he used, but Isaac believed that the one who received the blessing would truly be blessed, and the Messiah would come through that line. So by faith, he did it. Let's go to my next slide as I get ready to wrap up this morning. We see a glimpse of Jesus in this story. I think in everybody here. We see a glimpse of Jesus in Isaac. Isaac is the dispenser of blessing, the one whom favor flows from. Maybe you need a blessing from God this morning. Blessings flow from him. In fact, he's not just the giver of blessing, he is the blessing. Isaac is a glimpse of Jesus. We see that Esau is a glimpse of Jesus. Jacob came into his father's presence wearing Esau's clothes. He would never have been able to pull this off if he wasn't wearing his brother's clothes. That was his safety net in his father's presence so he wouldn't be found out. Here's the thing, we don't come into God's presence in our own clothing. We come in the righteousness of Jesus. Now here's the good news, we didn't steal it. We're not trying to manipulate it. We're not trying to fool anybody. Jesus gives it to us. He paid the price. He died for us, resurrected. Then he says, here, take my robe of righteousness and you can use it. You can come into my Father's presence. He said, you can come boldly into the throne of grace and receive help in time of need, not because of our clothes, not because something that was stolen, because Jesus gives his robe of righteousness to us. We see a glimpse of Jesus in Rebekah. Rebekah says, if you go in there and you get found out, the curse, let it be on me, not on you. Jesus came to earth so that the curse of sin could come on him and not on us. And then we see a glimpse of Jesus in Jacob. Jacob is the recipient of blessing. Unlike Jacob, we're not trying to manipulate to get it. He gained it through deception and trickery. The Lord wants to bless us. He wants to bless us. We are the receivers of blessing. So here's a story about imperfect families, pointing to the perfect son, Jesus, who received the blessing from the Father, not because he stole it or was tricking for it, but because he lived the perfect life on our behalf. This is the good news of the gospel. This is what we get to walk in. So let's think for a minute here as we get ready to close in prayer. This story reminds us that even the most broken and imperfect families, God has a plan of redemption. So no matter how your family might be imperfect this morning, or maybe broken, or you may be thinking dysfunctional, whatever it might be, God has a plan of redemption for you and for your family. And he has a blessing this morning for each one of us, not something that we're working towards, not something we're trying to steal or pretend like we deserve, something that he freely wants to give us, not something that we're trying to fight for that somebody else might get instead of us. God doesn't have one blessing to pass out. He has enough for all of us. The great thing is nobody gets left out if you don't want left out. We can all receive his blessing. Will you stand with me this morning as we get ready to close in prayer? Maybe you need a blessing from God today. I don't know what your week looked like. Maybe it was messed up. Or maybe it was still good, but you're like, I'm still in need of more. Maybe today's your day. Not a blessing that we're earning or fighting for, but something that God freely gives us as we just open up our hearts and minds to him.